Awesome news, guys. Awesome news. Just breaking in now. Child poverty rate is at about 1.1%, down about 3% over the past year. No? Okay, no. Actually, it surged to 12.4% in 2022, up from 5.2%. So it's up 7.2%. According to the government's own information. So you can imagine how much more it actually surged to, considering the things we show here in our monthly portfolio allocation investment letter, where we show the government CPI numbers and how they're literally half of what actual inflation is, or at least inflation that we can see. So just imagine what child poverty really is at in this instance. That's incredible to even think about. Absolutely incredible to even think about. So that's the government numbers, and it's due to, can you guess? Something we talk about here all the time. Broken fiat currencies. Broken currencies. Expanded tax credits, stimulus checks, PPP, expanded welfare, expanded unemployment. Is there any means testing? Just debt. You cannot, unless you produce something, actually put work in and actually produce something of value, you cannot counterfeit currency into existence if that work has not been done. That is the very problem. When no work's been done, you're now flooding dollars into the system when no actual good or service has been provided. So what happens when Bob Burnett gives that example, which we talked about a few months ago, when you have a line down the middle of the room and you have 100 goods and services and you've got $100 over here. When you keep flooding all the dollars over here but the goods and services don't change, what happens when all these people start rushing in to buy that same 100 goods and services? Well, now the price has to go up to account for all the dollars that have flooded into the system over here. Well, that's exactly what's happening over here now, because now we are putting more and more people into poverty. We're putting more children into poverty, but we don't really care. We don't care about children at all. Let's be honest. We have I don't even know who it is, the Surgeon General, someone coming out and saying we need to get stuck in our arms with new experimental medicines. Kids down to 6 months old. They didn't know they needed those type of things. That's pretty incredible. They're out doing all kinds of stuff, going to school, going to their jobs, and they need to be protected by those things. Those 6-month-year-olds. We don't protect our kids in school. I don't see an armed guard. I don't see teachers carrying in school. I don't see anyone anywhere educated on firearm safety. I don't see anyone testing mental illness. I don't see all the masks and bubbles you put kids in for a few years increasing mental illness. All the pill popping going on by their parents. Big Pharma pushing more and more pills. You ever wonder why when you see commercials all the time for Big Pharma and the entire time it's just sound effects or it's just warnings the entire time? It's not any commercial. It's just a bunch of like fun-loving people on the screen and then side effects they're telling you the entire time. That's the world we live in. Of course, when you've broken the currency, you've driven people to their breaking points. You've increased the cost for everyone, lowered the standard of living. You've increased mental health issues. You don't provide any protection. We're aborting and murdering children in the womb, the most vulnerable of all people. We're having people flood across the borders, just trafficking children everywhere. Just absolute chaos, absolute anarchy everywhere, in every sector of society that you look around. And we're surprised this is the case. We're surprised. All of it comes back to, and that might sound very doomsday. Unfortunately, that's realistic. It's just what's going on. Those are the facts. So we can't argue these things. That's just what's going on. So how do we fix these things? That's what we try to talk about all the time here. And I don't propose to have all the solutions. I don't propose to have every single fact in the world either. I do know those things, though. I do know all of those things. And I do know there's massive currency, cash laundering going around. Or it's not money. Cash isn't money. So we can't call it money. That's why I say cash or currency so much. But there's currency laundering going on all over the place through government programs. That's why government bloat gets so big, is they're constantly stealing your time and energy through inflation because they don't have to ask you to tax you. So that's why they continually print more currency and the debt grows more and more every day. 31 trillion, there'll be 35 trillion, it'll be 50 trillion, it'll be 100 trillion in the next few years because they have to keep printing. They're talking about the government shutting down. Biden's supposed to be giving a talk here this week, and It's about the government shutting down, I believe, and what better way to start stemming the tide and start going the other direction. But, spoiler alert, you can't go back the other direction. You can't stem that tide. We're in a debt-based system that's past the Overton. The Overton window has moved so much it's past a tipping point. And there's no going back. You're not going to go back to this world of equity, of merit, of sound principles, first principles, sound money. We're not in that system. That's why we're building a new system, a Bitcoin system, an equity-based system based on equity and fairness and laws. Rules, not rulers, is being built alongside the sinking fiat legacy Titanic. That's all there is to it. Period. End of story. That's why we need as many people as possible educated, talking about these things, and quite honestly fired up about it. There's all kinds of insane things going on, right? The children thing, it grinds me the most out of anything. That's what drives me every day. My 4 children, all the children that are being murdered, trafficked, whether it's in the womb, in schools, the pill popping, the divorce rates, the mental health issues, and on and on and on. The most vulnerable in society. America used to care about things like that, and unfortunately we no longer do. But a lot of that comes from the detraction of God from society, which is one of the 45 goals from 100 years ago that we talk about all the time. One of the big things is infiltrating the churches, getting God out of the public light, the public square, getting God out of schools. When you have no moral compass, it's very hard for humans to then start doing the correct thing. Because then when you start making your own moral compass, you can, we're justification, we're rationalizing creatures. We like to rationalize, I would say 99% of people always think they're doing the right thing when because we rationalize what we're doing. We're always rationalizing what we're doing, and we're very good at it. We're very good negotiators with ourselves. And that's why a moral compass is so important. But when you have that, number one, when God leaves, society, you have money go very quickly, and money then turns into an actual unit of account, medium of exchange, a store of value, a finite container, which we've never really actually had. When you break that, next, everything starts to come unraveled. You have the moving goalpost. No one has any idea what's going on. No one has any sense of reality. Merit leaves society, and then you have things like this. You have the people, the one world government at the top, the bankers, and the people controlling everything. Politicians, bankers. You have this system up top that can then funnel all and siphon away all your time and energy, your wealth through inflation. That's the whole system. Keynesianism is a symptom. It's really the Keynesianism and printing and central banks and monetary inflation are all the channel by which Marxism flourishes. That's the conveyor belt and that's what produces and flourishes and readies the ground for the growth of communism and Marxism, where the people have nothing and only a fraction of a percent at the top control the world. That in a nutshell is what's happening and what's happened, and we have everything to prove it. We have absolutely everything to prove it. This is not debatable at this point. It's very obvious. We're not at the beginning of the story, but at the end of the story. So we can see exactly what's happening, what their goals were, how many they've accomplished, and what's actually happening. If you want to go read this again, the 45 Communist Goals, 1963, you can read about it in Skousen's book, The Naked Communist. You can go read about it in there. It's probably the best, well-written version of it. I think I might have it over here somewhere in this pile, actually. So, of course, because we've broken all that, and we are beat over the head relentlessly with propaganda, with our own time and energy that was stolen away from us, that cash that was siphoned away through inflation, then gets put into the people's pockets, the big guys' pockets. Bloated government increases bloated government, incentivizing people to go to government to make sure they are paying themselves through inflation and through your taxes, your own time and energy. This is a world we live in. Bloat, people that don't care, people that are apathetic, indifferent. Most people I talk to honestly don't even care. They're just like, whatever. I mean, we are desensitized to morons. We have people a guy that can't even stand upright leading the country. Think about that. And people just desensitized to it. Totally desensitized. Like, that's like, whatever. Like, that's normal. In a way, it's a good thing because people have to think more independently. They have to understand that they are their own best friend and their own enemy. We have to become prepared, become independent and resilient. That way, we need the governments of the world less and less. We don't need these overlords. There's no reason to. So, child poverty on the rise and going to continue to rise. Mark my words. We will come back to this and revisit it a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. Guaranteed it will be higher. By actual, true inflation, not the gimmicks and the hedonic adjustments that the government makes. So again, what's the solution to it? Well, it's sound money. What's the most perfect, best sound money we've had so far? You guessed it, Bitcoin. We've never actually had pure money where we had a finite container with no inflation hole in it. Everything else has had an inflation hole in it that comes out through more mining of precious metals, more inflation, more printing of currency. Bitcoin is a perfect finite container where none of your purchasing power leaves, and that accrues purchasing power over time. Every person using it accrues purchasing power over time, and you have a higher standard of living and lower costs. Please share this out. The algorithm hates truth, absolutely hates truth, and we need to understand what is going on in this world, because we are doomed to repeat the mistakes of the past, and we are well on that way. So please share this out. The algorithm hates truth. Question everything with boldness, even the existence of God himself. Trust but verify. This is not financial advice. It's freedom advice, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one.